Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. It's happening every single day. There's a new article about Clinton, Brennan, Comey, upcoming indictments, the DOJ, grand juries, and this is just the news. The publication from John Solomon, award-winning journalist. He really deserves the Pulitzer Prize, along with Miranda Devine and other journalists who actually did journalism and not public relations, which is what a great many publications engaged in. But anyway, Clinton corruption files, Bondi, Patel unleashed new evidence about former First Family Foundation. Again, a lot of these things don't really have a statute of limitations because they're part of conspiracy statutes. Officials. Okay, so Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have produced to Congress a new cache of documents showing how Bill and Hillary Clinton's foundation collected donations from foreign and domestic interests seeking influence, raising fresh concerns that such evidence was kept from federal prosecutors who tried to investigate pay-to-play allegations against the former First Lady a decade ago. Officials told Just the News that documents were transmitted to the Senate Judiciary Committee in recent days and detail numerous instances of foreigners and even U.S. defense contractors seeking to curry favor with the Clintons through donations to their family charity. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. This is could be part of the conspiracy statutes, the grand jury in Florida, underway at the moment. Hit subscribe to the channel. To my super chat, thank you. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this. Subscribe there and check out the latest segments and uploads. There will be new uploads today on H.A. Goodman's other channel. Every single day, there's a new development pertaining to upcoming indictments for Comey, Brennan, Clinton. Comey was already indicted. Brennan will be indicted very soon, and Clinton will after Brennan. Hit subscribe. This is a trip down memory lane. Let's take a trip down memory lane. This is what has taken 10 years, and the Senate Judiciary Committee is now investigating. The DOJ is going to level conspiracy statutes. So this could be that, or it could be new indictments as well. So Trump was hit with 91. He could very well level 40 or 50 at Madam Secretary, and that they would actually be linked to specific crimes, not absurd hush money payments that weren't even a crime, according to FEC chairman. But let's continue.
This Uranium One story has been debunked countless times. It is nothing but a false charge that the Trump administration is trying to drum up in order to avoid attention being directed at them. This is such an abuse of power, and it goes right at the rule of law. If they send a signal that we're going to be like some dictatorship, some authoritarian regime where political opponents are going to be unfairly, fraudulently investigated, that.
So the New York Times, when it still did journalism, in 2015, published a landmark investigation. It was an article on money flowing into the Clinton Foundation and President Obama refusing to veto the sale of, at that point, 20% of U.S. uranium capacity. To who? Oh, that's right, to Russia and to Putin. And Trump was. And then the narrative changed to, the Ruskies want Trump, after Clinton's own campaign emails showed that she wanted to elevate Trump. But the point is, the foundation received millions from sources from everyone, ranging from companies associated with the Russian government to a whole bunch of shady characters. But let's continue.
Rips at the fabric of the contract we have, that we can trust our justice system.
Really? Hillary talking about the rule of law and the possibility of a special counsel to investigate her role in that whole corrupt Uranium One deal? She's obviously getting nervous here with more reaction. Author of the best-selling book, Clinton Cash. Really? We're going to get a lecture on the rule of law? You know, I watch people now assail you. Even the Never Trump crowd is now trying to come to the defense, I noticed, of and the possibility.
So Peter Schweitzer has done a lot of investigative journalism, okay? Something all the left-leaning publications should do. pertaining to their political side, but they will not do that. See, the problem, however, the problem for the past 10, 15 years was that publications on the left, or liberal or progressive publications, journalists, it's all about tribalism for many of them. It's not about truth. If Trump had secret servers, if Trump had a laptop with bribery and graft, if Trump had a foundation where he stole billions from the country of Haiti, or 20% of U.S. uranium capacity was sold to the Russians during a Republican administration, they would never let up. Instead of the number of Pulitzer Prizes they won, you could triple or quadruple that. If Trump had the scandals that Clinton and other Democrats had, media would never rest. But they had to fabricate scandals with the Steele dossier. So you have Uranium One, Haiti, all of these scandals with the Clinton Foundation, and you have the Steele dossier with Trump. They had to fabricate a scandal with Trump. It's all gossip and hearsay with Trump. It's all money flow with both Bidens, Clintons, and Democrats. So that's the difference between the two political sides at the moment.
Of a special counsel to investigate her role in that whole corrupt Uranium One deal. She's obviously getting nervous here with more reaction. Author of the best-selling book, Clinton Cash. Really? We're going to get a lecture on the rule of law? You know, I watch people now assail you. Even the Never Trump crowd is now trying to come to the defense, I noticed, of Hillary Clinton. I want to give you a chance to respond and explain to people all of the connections here. I'll hand it to you.
Well, thanks, Sean. This is a story that begins in 2005. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton helped Frank Giustra, a Canadian investor, get very, very rich uranium deposits in Kazakhstan from the Kazakh government. And we now have a video deposition from the Kazakh uranium minister at the time going into detail about how they were extorted by then Senator Hillary Clinton to grant those concessions to Frank Giustra. She was on the Armed Services Committee. She would not meet with Kazakh officials. Her committee had responsibility for the distribution of funds that were supposed to go to Kazakhstan. She made it clear, no uranium for Giustra. You are not going to get your support from the federal government. After Giustra got those uranium deposits, he sent $30 million to the Clinton Foundation.
What is the timeline on that?
Yeah, so that's 2005 is when that deal happens. Within 2 months, he sends the first $30 million to the Clinton Foundation. 2007, they do what's called a reverse merger. They take those Kazakh assets, they put them in a company called Uranium One. Uranium One acquires uranium assets in the United States. In 2010, the Russian government says, we want to buy Uranium One. That triggers the federal approval of the United States. As the U.S. federal government and the State Department is considering that deal, the chairman of Uranium One, Ian Telfer, sends $2.35 million to the Clinton Foundation through a private foundation. It was never disclosed. It was only discovered by going through Canadian tax records. Bill Clinton gives a $500,000 speech the month as that approval is going through to a company in Russia that is involved financially with Uranium One. The ties and the deals go on. And let me just add, Sean, by the way, it's about to get a lot more interesting because we know some details about this lobbyist, this source that's come forward. His name is William Campbell. He lives in Florida. He was with Cassidy and Associates, which is one of the big lobbying firms in D.C., where he lobbied on Russian interests from 2007 to 2008. He then started his own firm, was paid $50,000 a month by the Russians for lobbying. And this is what his contract was for, quote, to improve the media and political environment in the U.S. in respect to the surprise of the Russian uranium products, and, quote, to set up meetings with U.S. administration officials, members of Congress, and other key opinion elite in 10X and Russian government officials. So this is a very inside guy that's coming forward as this whistleblower.
Russia, we had Putin bad actors.
So, through a series of investments within the Clinton Foundation, or quote-unquote bribes, or donations, there was a company that was eventually purchased. A company is linked to donations within the Clinton Foundation. That company, or the people who were running that company, eventually started another company, and that company was, or those people eventually started another company, and that company acquired U.S. uranium deposits and then was purchased, if I have it correct, correct me if I'm wrong, and then was purchased by the Russian government, and President Obama's administration allowed the sale to take place. And Trump is the puppet, not Clinton, not Democrats. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Trump had allowed the Russian government to purchase property or uranium deposits within the United States of America? Could you imagine?
In the United States, Mueller was the FBI director. Eric Holder was one of the 9 that signed off on the deal, CFIUS deal, the committee. Then you've got bribery, extortion, kickbacks, money laundering, and racketeering. Mueller had to know because they had an FBI informant. He had his own personal experience, ended up 4 years being an informant. Then you got tapes, and then we've got documents, and we got emails and a firsthand account. And Putin was breaking all of these laws to get a foothold in the uranium market. And they knew in 2009.
And then the rebuttal was, it's just a commodity. Oh, big deal. It's just a commodity. Gee, what can you build with that? Oh, a specific type of armament that can destroy the planet. Oh, that's right. So it's really amusing. They'll contort themselves into. There are lifelong Democrats who view this to be tribalism. It's not about truth. It's not about if Trump had this scandal. So they have Uranium One, where you're talking about the building blocks of nuclear weapons that the country, United States of America, under President Obama, while Clinton was Secretary of State, allowed apparently our greatest adversary, because it's the Cold War again, a Cold War adversary who once had missiles pointing at us every single second of the day. Could you imagine JFK looking at this, or Reagan, or Truman, or say, oh, look, the Clintons took money from a bunch of people who eventually facilitated the sale of 20% or whatever percent of U.S. uranium capacity to Russia? We went from 50 years of a Cold War to 20% of U.S. uranium capacity being sold to Russia, from the United States of America being sold to Russia. Does that make any sense? And the best they had against Trump was a dossier they literally made up. Does that make any sense to you?
You're right, Sean. In fact, the purchase of Uranium One was announced by Vladimir Putin himself. It was reported in the Moscow Times, which is an English language publication in Moscow. He personally released the funds to purchase Uranium One in the United States. And look, the argument that the Clinton defenders use is, well, there were all these government agencies that were involved in this process. She didn't do it by herself. From the standpoint of bribery, that is irrelevant. If you're a congressman sitting on a committee and a committee votes unanimously for something, but you got paid to vote for that, it doesn't matter what your colleagues did. You committed bribery,
Yeah.
and that's why this needs to be investigated.
All right, Peter, we're going to stay on this.
I have a lot of questions about
So this is very interesting. Check this out.
this story. The House Oversight Committee is now set to probe an Obama administration deal, a deal in which a Russian-backed company invested in a uranium ore firm that had mines in the U.S., effectively gaining control over 20% of all the uranium in the United States of America. Now, this deal It happened back in 2010. It did require the approval of 9 U.S. agencies, including Hillary Clinton's State Department. So why did they allow it? I mean, uranium is a strategic asset. You know what you can do with uranium. And I wouldn't say even back in 2010, Russia was necessarily any kind of friend. So why would we allow a foreign entity like?
By the way, Trish Regan has a YouTube channel, very successful. She's awesome. Subscribe to her YouTube channel. This is a very good synopsis right here. Check it out. Imagine if Trump, if you're a morally superior liberal, Democrat, or progressive, you stumble upon this. Imagine if Trump had to deal with this. Or imagine if Trump had a foundation where money flowed into it and a deal to sell uranium capacity within the United States to Russia was approved by a Republican administration. Do you think maybe that's more important than literally a fabricated document called the Steele dossier that they utilized to investigate Trump for years and years? A fabricated dossier was utilized to investigate Trump with Brennan and Comey and others. They had an actual uranium sale sent to Putin, and that wasn't good enough to investigate.
Questions about this story. The House Oversight Committee is now set to probe an Obama administration deal, a deal in which a Russian-backed company invested in a uranium ore firm that had mines in the U.S.
A Russian-backed company invested in a uranium ore firm that had mines in the U.S., and then those mines apparently were sold to, oh, that's right, Putin.
Effectively gaining control over 20% of all the uranium in the United States of America. Now, this deal, it happened back in 2010. It did require the approval of 9 U.S. agencies, including Hillary Clinton's State Department. So why did they allow it? I mean, uranium is a strategic asset. You know what you can do with uranium. And I wouldn't say even back in 2010, Russia was necessarily any kind of friend. So why would we allow a foreign entity like that to gain control over such a strategic asset? Mind you, it was all happening at a time when we've learned the FBI was investigating whether or not Vladimir Putin was trying to have undue influence in the atomic energy market here in the U.S. So you put that together with the Russians doing this deal, and I think it raises a lot of questions. You know who else thinks it raises a lot of questions? Florida Congressman and House Oversight Committee member Ron DeSantis, who's spearheading this investigation. Good to see you, Congressman. Tell us what you're looking for, what you're up to, and what kind of answers you need, what your questions are, and the answers that you'd like to see.
Well, we've known for a long time that there were a number of payments made both personally to Bill Clinton and to the Clinton Foundation from Uranium One connected individuals or entities, all foreign sources. We also know, as you mentioned, that this Uranium One deal had to be approved by the Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States, the members of which included then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. What I think we can find out now is there's a confidential informant that the FBI used starting in 2009 who was basically in the thick of a major racketeering scheme with some of the Russian elements who were involved in doing this uranium scan. I believe that that individual would be able to put some meat on the bones. The problem is,
have you spoken to that individual?
I've spoken at length with the individual's attorney. I believe that there is a lot of very credible evidence here. The problem, though, is that the individual, as being a confidential informant, signed a non-disclosure agreement with the Eric Holder Justice Department. He wanted to come forward and litigate some claims in 2016, and the Lynch Justice Department threatened him with reprisal if he were to.
So the way that Democrats, whether it's President Obama's administration, Biden's administration with the Biden laptop, they don't view bribery and graft as national security concerns. They view it as business. So Brennan and Comey and all of them with private servers, when Clinton had private servers, I wrote about this, okay? It's almost certainly because she had donors and Clinton Foundation money and donors that she wanted to hide from the world. This is obvious. That's almost certainly what took place. You can only speculate because all the emails are missing, and the first 3 months of Clinton's emails are missing, according to Comey, and they illegally transferred top secret and special access program intelligence onto servers. It's not even possible from a cybersecurity perspective. Okay? The issue, however, is the following. They don't view it as a national security concern because they say, well, it's just a commodity, and we have the same type of nuclear weapons also. So what does it matter if they can build more with the commodity that they purchase from mines within the U.S.? That's the warped and twisted thinking. It's almost very similar to when Aldrich Ames was caught, the CIA turncoat, and he was caught selling secrets to the KGB, and he said, well, nothing they acquired was really a damage to national security. Well, it's not for him to decide. That's treasonous. That's espionage. That's treason. You're selling secrets to an enemy, and so that's not for the traitor to decide. It's not for the people who covered up the rampant criminality or corruption to say, oh, it's not that big of a deal that uranium deposits were sold to Putin. What the big deal is, there's the Steele dossier. That's the big problem. Imagine if the tables were turned. If Giuliani and Trump purchased a dossier because they had nothing on the Clintons that said that Clinton and Harris and Biden and President Obama were in a Moscow hotel room enjoying a certain type of activity. And then the New York Times and the Washington Post and Jimmy Kimmel, they'd all be livid. They would say, oh my God, wait a second. Trump allowed uranium mines to be sold to Putin, and that's all he has on the Democrats, a dossier? See, if you turn it around, there's no way that a Republican or President Trump especially could ever have gotten away with anything. The laptop, the Uranium One deal, the servers, they couldn't get away with anything. Because these are actual scandals and actual corruption. They don't take money and like a dollar bill and put it in a garter belt. They take money through corporations, shell corporations, PACs, foundations. They don't even do anything themselves. They buy a dossier through 5 or 6 different, 2 corporations, 5, 7 public relations people, and then they say, well, we didn't buy the dossier. All those other people bought the dossier. And so, but it all leads back to, it's all criminal. It's just like with Bernie Madoff. Every single stock sale was legal. It was part of a Ponzi scheme.
To go public on any of this stuff, I am appealing to the Attorney General to release him from the NDA. I also think Congress needs a copy of the NDA because it's not, I mean, these things may be used sometime, but it's odd that it would be used in this case given all the other facts and circumstances we've outlined.
What was the informant? So he was investigating basically the money trail between some Russians and Uranium One?
So the main guy at the center of this, the Russian national, knew that they needed somebody kind of on the inside of the American political system. Mm-hmm. So the confidential informant was an American lobbyist who got recruited to do this. The lobbyist realized pretty quickly this is not on the up and up, so he immediately went to the FBI. So basically, the government was getting all this information from almost day one in 2009, 2010, and on until the conviction in 2014. Here's the problem. None of the information gleaned from the investigation in 2009 and 2010 were provided to Congress before the Uranium One deal was approved, and none of it was provided, we don't think, to any members of the CFIUS board that approved it.
The corruption is so outlandish. It's so absurd. And again, if Democrats say this is no big deal, imagine if President Trump had a foundation that allowed all of this. There's nothing that Trump has ever done or even accused of that can even be close to any of this. That the lie, the myth that he colluded with Russia, that's not even as dangerous to national security as having this commodity sold from U.S. mines to Putin. That's not only a national security risk, it's so overtly outlandish. It's like, how could that even possibly take place after 50 years of a Cold War where you had the end of the world every single day, in the faces of people of both countries?
And the question is, why was that information not produced? And why has that information not been produced since then?
I think it's even more simple than that. I don't even think you need the informant. It's quite obvious. You do not want a foreign player investing in uranium in the United States of America. I mean, it's not as though Russia was our best friend back then in 2010. This should have sent off alarm bells, Congressman.
Well, it did. It did, Trish. In the Congress, there was opposition to this. Almost all Republicans. You know, it's interesting how the media deals with Russia now. Yeah. Republicans were opposed to it. Now, it was before I was in the Congress. But what would have strengthened the opposition is if they would have known that there was an ongoing FBI investigation involving bribery and racketeering. That would have blown the lid off this thing. Mm-hmm. So you're right. The deal shouldn't have gone through, even if there was no criminal activity involved. But the fact that there was, had that been produced politically, it would have been very powerful. And I think the deal would have been defeated.
And it's now being produced. Attorney General Pam Bondi. This is today. John Solomon. By John Solomon in Just the News. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have produced to Congress a new cache of documents showing how Bill and Hillary Clinton's foundation collected donations from foreign and domestic interests seeking influence. It took 10 years. It's happening. Everything that I've been telling you. I mean, you can read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Federalist. I've been telling you this for a long time. It's taken 10 years, people. Okay, officials told Just the News that documents were transmitted to the Senate Judiciary Committee in recent days and detail numerous instances of foreigners and even a U.S. defense contractor seeking to curry favor with the Clintons through donations to their family charity. That's why they had. Okay, so officials, Just the News reported earlier this year, that the FBI had 3 separate investigations into possible pay-to-play allegations against the Clinton Foundation, but all were closed after Obama Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates ordered agents to shut it down. Well, that's how Democrats do things. They have to allow the investigation to take place just because it's so outlandish. It's so obvious that there's corruption. So they allow an investigation, and then they shut it down. They said, well, we couldn't find anything. But it's like, yeah, the whole planet knows it's a cover-up, but let's continue.
Never should have happened in that, this is a strategic asset. You don't need the Russians owning a strategic asset in the United States of America. So somebody for sure dropped the ball on this one. And we haven't even gotten into the conflict of interest between Mr. and Mrs. Clinton and the Russians and all the money that went to the Clinton Foundation, $146 million it's estimated, or the $500,000 speaking fee that Bill Clinton got just weeks after this deal was approved. So there's a lot of meat on the bones there, I think, and a lot of questions that should be addressed. And I'm glad to see you guys are looking into it because, you hope for the best. But in this particular one, there just seems to be so many conflicts that if we're going to start talking about Russia and we need to investigate Russia, this is something that needs to be investigated.
So they went from selling that commodity to Russia to accusing Trump of being a puppet of Russia. See, I mean, it's like everything everything that they embody, they've accused President Trump of, and it's taken 10 years. Just the News, subscribe to Just the News by John Solomon. Because you better believe the Washington Post and New York Times are barely going to touch upon this. Only when they possibly have to, and the headline will be, old debunked pseudo-scandal now unearthed by Trump to go after his enemies.
The Department of Justice launched an investigation into whether a major U.S. non-profit engaged in pay-to-play politics, also known as corruption. One of the organization's founders is a former president, and another was Secretary of State. Donors to the foundation included some of the richest and most powerful people and corporations in the world. And in exchange for their donations, they received special access, favors, protection, and lucrative business deals. Tonight, we investigate the swamp that started it all. The Clinton Foundation is tonight's Swamp Watch. The Clinton Foundation has raised roughly $2 billion since its creation in 2001. Over $48 million of that's been from overseas governments. As Secretary of State under President Obama, Hillary Clinton was in a unique position to reward those countries for their generosity. Take Saudi Arabia, for example. They gave between $10 and $25 million to the Clinton Foundation. Seems like a wide range, right? Well, that's all we can tell you because that's all the Clinton Foundation will publicly disclose. As Secretary of State, Clinton had the power to approve or deny arms deals between American companies and foreign nations. So which foreign nation got her approval for a massive $29 billion weapons deal in 2011? Surprise, surprise, Saudi Arabia. Now, some Clinton defenders, and there are still some, not many, but they're out there, might say that's just a coincidence. After all, there's nothing that unusual about US firms selling weapons to the Saudis. Maybe not. But was this a coincidence too? Boeing, the defense contractor that manufactures the F-15 fighter jet that the Saudis were hoping to acquire in the deal, gave $900,000 to the Clinton Foundation just 2 months before the deal was finalized. Now, why would they do that, do you think? You've got to hand it to the Clintons managing to get payoffs from both sides of that deal. It's truly world-class corruption that comes with years of practice. In fact, under Hillary Clinton, the State Department approved $165 billion worth of commercial arms sales to 20 nations whose governments gave money to the Clinton Foundation. That was nearly double the value of American arms sales made to those countries and approved by the...
Imagine if Trump had a foundation, $165 billion from 20 countries. 20 countries give to Trump's foundation, and then they coincidentally get $165 billion in arms deals. Imagine how many Pulitzer Prizes would be given out to the Washington Post and New York Times if Trump had the foundation and not the Clintons.
The State Department during the same period of George W. Bush's second term. But it must just be a coincidence. And here's another one. In 2009, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and a trade association funded by ExxonMobil lobbied Hillary Clinton's State Department for a new oil pipeline from Canada to Wisconsin. Just in case the lobbying wasn't enough, those three companies also donated between $2 and $3 million to the Clinton Foundation. Hillary approved the permit for the pipeline that same year. What a lot of coincidences the Clintons seem to be accumulating. This next one is Bill's. On his last day in office, President Clinton pardoned financier Mark Rich, who fled to Switzerland after being indicted on multiple federal charges, including tax evasion. How merciful. I guess it's just a coincidence that Mark Rich's wife, Denise, made a number of large donations to the Clinton Presidential Foundation, including $250,000 in 1998, $100,000 in 1999 and $100,000 in 2000, the year before her husband was pardoned. To paraphrase Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, the quality of mercy is not strained, it droppeth, like giant checks into the Clintons' bank account. In 2010, Bill used his Clinton Global Initiative, an arm of the foundation that arranges corporate donations to various causes, to steer $2 million towards a company called Energy Pioneer Solutions, which was partially owned by his close friend, Julie Tauber McMahon. He also personally endorsed her company to the Secretary of Energy, earning it an $800,000 grant by the Department of Energy. In January 2014, the Fragrance Foundation, a trade group for the perfume industry, paid Bill Clinton $260,000 to give a speech that lasted less than an hour. Following the talk, the Clinton Foundation organized and partially funded a lime tree planting effort in Haiti that directly benefited Swiss company Firmenich International, one of the world's largest fragrance and flavoring suppliers. Clinton's $260,000 speaking fee wasn't even a donation to the foundation. It was reported as personal income. In fact, he was paid more than $100 million for speeches between 2001 and 2013. And since leaving the White House, he's made at least $26 million in speaking fees from companies and organizations that also donated to his foundation. Why do the Clintons get to double dip into these donors' pockets?
And the Bidens did the same thing. It's not perhaps not to the level of the Clintons, but I mean, Eric Trump asked a great question regarding Hunter Biden. What was Hunter selling? So Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, President Trump, the entire family have golf courses, resorts, casinos, hotels. You know how Trump became a billionaire. But Hunter and the Clintons and the Bidens, well, the Hunter because of Joe Biden, what were they selling? So they're giving money to a foundation for what purpose? Altruism? They need to have 5, 6, 10 degrees of separation between the money they accept and themselves. So they use a foundation as a conduit. Okay, this is obvious. So people say, well, I'm just giving it to the foundation. It's like, okay, it's a legal form of bribery and graft, but at what point does all of this move from just being a very overt effort to circumvent existing bribery and graft laws and statutes to rampant criminality? So what were the Clintons selling? What was Hunter selling when he was on the board of that energy company? What are these people? What do Democrats sell? Do they have resorts, hotels like Trump? What are they selling? Oh, access. Oh, okay.
It's simple, really. The more money these donors give to the Clintons, the more favor they find with one of the world's most powerful families. Here's another example. Following the horrific 2010 earthquake in Haiti, the government of Haiti set up a recovery committee chaired by Bill Clinton. Bill's committee asked Irish mobile telephone service provider Digicel to create a system to transfer relief money to Haiti via cell phones. In 6 months, Digicel brought in more than $50 million in revenue in Haiti. Here's the kicker. Digicel was run by Irish billionaire Dennis O'Brien, who set up a number of paid speeches for Bill Clinton and also donated millions of his own money to the Clinton Foundation. Another benefit of giving to the Clintons was special access to meetings with Hillary while she was Secretary of State. An AP investigation found that more than half the people outside the government who met with Hillary in the first half of her tenure gave money to the Clinton Foundation. Their total donation amount? Over $150 million. Even Chelsea Clinton warned of serious concerns over conflicts of interest at the foundation, especially in connection with a secretive lobbying firm, Teneo, set up by Hillary Clinton's former fundraiser and Bill Clinton's right-hand man. Many of Teneo's clients were also Clinton Foundation donors. Emails exposed by WikiLeaks showed Chelsea raising red flags because Teneo officials were using Bill Clinton's name to set up meetings for their lobbying clients like Dow Chemical and Coca-Cola and hustling for clients at the Clinton Global Initiative. While all this was going on, Hillary's top aide, Huma Abedin, was a paid consultant to this lobbying firm, Teneo, while she was working at the State Department. And we haven't even mentioned the Uranium One deal, another Clinton coincidence, where Frank Giustra, who owned the uranium mining company Eurasia that later merged with Uranium One before it was sold to the Russians, donated over $30 million to the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton business model is the swamp in its most perfect form. Let's end with the words of legendary New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd, who pretty much nailed it. Someday, the Clintons should give their tin cup to the Smithsonian. It's one of the wonders of the world.
So, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is an article, November 11th, 2025. Clinton corruption files. Bondi Patel unleashed new evidence about former First Family Foundation. Senate Judiciary. Attorney General Pam Bondi. The FBI Director Kash Patel. This is November 11th. Have produced to Congress a new cache of documents showing how Bill and Hillary Clinton's foundation collected donations from foreign and domestic interests seeking influence. It has taken 10 years. Okay? We are talking about this, and we will always this is not only a part of modern US history. This will be a part of US history for a long time, because all of this will lead to indictments. That's why Clinton had the servers to begin with, the pay-to-play schemes with the foundation. The servers were why Comey, he covered up the whole server, top secret intel on private servers for the Clinton Foundation nonsense and pay-to-play schemes to be erased. Okay? And then you had Brennan and Comey and others set up and frame Trump to move the narrative, to move the media away from obvious and overt graft, bribery, criminality to fake and phony scandals. There was literally nothing that Trump ever was accused of that had any basis in reality. Even the classified data, he was a president with the power to declassify. Let's continue.
Story for you. The Justice Department and the FBI have launched a new inquiry into whether the Clinton Foundation engaged in any pay-to-play politics or other illegal activities while Hillary Clinton served as Secretary of State. Investigators now looking into whether the Clinton Foundation violated tax law and potentially whether Clinton aide Uma Abedin answered emails from Clinton Foundation donors asking for favors from the Secretary of State. Fox News has learned that the investigation has been underway for months and that FBI agents in Little Rock have already conducted multiple interviews in the probe. Let's bring in Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Happy New Year, Judge.
Right back at you, Emac. Good to be with you.
Does this new FBI inquiry have legs to it now?
Well, I believe it does. I mean, many people who follow this, I among them, have been arguing for a longer time that this is actually an easier case for the government to prove than the email case. I know you want to get to that in a minute, but the apparent pay for play, meaning if you make a donation to my family foundation, I will do a favor for you as Secretary of State, even though I have the discretion to do the favor or not to do the favor on my own terms. That type of behavior, which we in the legal profession call bribery, there's ample evidence of that, from very, very small things to you want to see the Secretary of State, you want your picture taken with her. It would be very nice if you made a donation to the Clinton Foundation, all the way up to the unbelievable bundling of donations by a Canadian businessman called Frank Giustra, who was representing Kremlin interests in the ownership of a portion of a uranium mine in Utah. You can't make this up.
I love Judge Napolitano. Judge Andrew Napolitano is fantastic. You can't make it up. You can't, and that's, I think it was is Hillary Clinton with one of the editors, the main the CEO or the editor of Top Fashion magazine. Do you think that a top publisher or editor of a fashion magazine cares about 20% of U.S. uranium capacity sold to Russia after money flowed into the Clinton Foundation to facilitate the sale? Do you think any publisher cares? Do you think any morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat who thinks Trump is a menace to decent society and to the planet and to the universe? Do you think they care about overt, obvious corruption? Do you think they know that the Steele dossier was literally fabricated and made up, yet the email, the top secret intel was transferred onto servers that Clinton's team ran illegally, and it was impossible to do so from a cybersecurity perspective? Most of the country doesn't understand or know any of this. But let's continue.
Brought to the Clinton Foundation $148 million in bundled donations, and in return, Mrs. Clinton joined others in the Obama administration approving the acquisition of a portion of this uranium mine by Russian interests. So on its face, Emac, without even going deeper into the documents, and the people involved, there's enough to commence an investigation here.
So you're saying, even though Hillary Clinton is saying, I did not sit on that CFIUS panel to approve the Uranium One deal, you're saying behind the scenes that she basically backed it. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm saying that she sent an emissary to the meeting at which everybody raised their hand and said approved. Was she physically at the meeting? No, she's too smart to do that.
Judge, wasn't it always strange that Hillary and Bill Clinton ran a billion-dollar foundation while Hillary was Secretary of State and making a run for the president? I mean, that foundation took money from foreign governments, including Saudi Arabia. It just seems so strange, right?
Well, let's put it this way. It's never been done before. And in one respect, the FBI is in virgin territory. It is absolutely strange that the government permitted that to do. I say the government permitted it to happen. Every one of those donations, every one of those donors received some benefit from some government, because the Clinton Foundation, whether you think it's a criminal enterprise, a slush fund, or the next Red Cross, whatever you think it was, it did certify that tax-exempt foundations or donations were made to it in many states and in many areas where it did not have the authority to do so. So the worst thing that can happen to Bill and Hillary, short of being indicted, is for the government to claw back money from their donors who took tax breaks to which they weren't entitled because the foundation was not properly registered as a bona fide charity.
Yeah, that's the big one. I'll tell you, the IRS and the potential tax violations is a big angle on this.
I mean, that could be the Al Capone type of angle that President Trump uses to just indict not just Hillary and Bill, but everyone involved. But here, I'm just reading a Politico article here. Is there any truth to the allegations as PolitiFact has laid out in great detail? There's no direct evidence of a quid pro quo among Clinton, the State Department, Rosatom, and the Clinton Foundation donors with ties to Uranium One. Well, how could there be any direct evidence? As we heard from Ron DeSantis when he was in Congress earlier in this live stream, every single piece of evidence was withheld. So there's an active cover-up as the act of corruption and bribery is going on, and then the media says, well, there's no evidence. Of course there's no evidence. There's no direct evidence. There's obviously absurd, outlandish circumstantial evidence. It's the equivalent of, giant bags of money in a car with people wearing masks, speeding, and alarm bells going in a bank, but the car is a mile away, and then American media says, well, we don't know if that speeding car with bags of money driven by people with masks broke into the bank. We don't have any video footage. There's no direct evidence. And so it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, money went into a foundation, and then a deal for literally the Russians to purchase American mines that had uranium went through. This is completely absurd and outlandish. It's the height of a national security debacle. But there have been numerous national security debacles during President Obama's administration. The servers themselves with top secret intel is the greatest cybersecurity, most absurd, outlandish, sad, hilarious, pathetic, dangerous scandal of all time. But anyway, let's continue.
Sorry, I'm glad you brought that up, Judge. Because we just want to get clarity on this. Investigative reporter Sarah Carter says we may be hearing more about the Clinton Foundation. Let's take a listen.
Not only with regard to the Uranium One scandal, but all we have to do is look at what happened with the Clinton Foundation. We know that that actual investigation was never thoroughly shut down. It never officially closed. So this is very important. And there are a lot of senior FBI agents, a lot of people, not just in Little Rock, but in New York and in Florida and in other places where they have been investigating the Clinton Foundation, who are breathing a breath of fresh air right now and are really taking heart to what's going on in Little Rock. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more information coming out in the next few months.
Judge, there's that. And then, according to federal tax filings, look at this. Donations to the Clinton Foundation plunged dramatically after Hillary lost the election. Contributions fell by 42% to $63 million in 2016. And, Judge, donations had already dropped. They dropped dramatically, 37% in 2015 when pay-to-play allegations started to surface.
Well,
what are your thoughts there?
Well, none of these people want to get wrapped up in a situation where they've been indicted for taking an improper tax break, and in return for the government going easy on them in their indictment, they testify against Hillary Clinton. Was there a quid pro quo? Did you understand from your communications with Huma Abedin that if you made this donation to the Clinton Foundation, you'd get your picture taken with Hillary, or you'd get the Secretary of State to approve something that you were asking for? There's a lot of people who don't want to be in that situation who are likely to be in it. And I agree with the tape that you just ran. It's interesting. The reason she said New York and Florida, EMAC, these donations came from all 50 states. And I assure you, these donors took the donation as a reduction in income.
And that's almost certainly what President Trump and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are also looking at. The IRS, the Al Capone angle. And so, but that's not even the tip of the iceberg. The NSA, I'm just speculating, just based on the little knowledge I have of, politics, okay? Just speculation. Don't mind me. It's probably nonsense. That's why you should hit subscribe to this channel, because I really don't know much, but it's interesting. The speculation could be possible, potential, like the Honorable James Comey says, potential. The NSA almost certainly has every single one of not only Clinton's emails that she deleted and her attorneys destroyed and all that stuff, but every single email that every government employee has written. Possibly, potentially. I'm just going out on a limb.
Therefore, a reduction in their taxes on federal and on state income tax. And they did that in states where the Clinton Foundation was not a bona fide charity. And the feds want to know about it.
That's a big story. It's a bombshell. Judge Andrew Napolitano, please come back on the show. We'll talk some more about this. Thank you so much, sir, and Happy New Year.
So, a trip down memory lane. I hope you're enjoying it. We'll be back this evening with more trips down memory lane. But again, it's not, this is completely outlandish. We have been obsessed with Trump hush money and the Steele dossier that said Trump was in a Moscow hotel room and Trump trying to foment a rebellion. And now we're finding out that was almost certainly government employees involved. Okay. Everything with Trump was an absurd. That's why the Supreme Court overruled the Colorado State Supreme Court. The Colorado State Supreme Court. Brilliant minds were overruled by the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Justice Jackson, a unanimous decision. Even the liberals said, yeah, you can't kick Trump off the ballot. This is the level. This is the intelligentsia in our country. We have the most unintelligent intelligentsia. The American intelligentsia that views Trump to be a monster is composed of potentially imbeciles who have intelligence but lack wisdom. That's the problem with highly intelligent people that are so interested in tribalism and have zero link to God, or, that's a whole other story. Okay. If you believe that political allegiance is more important than spiritual or theological or issues that pertain to how you're judged after you're alive. Okay. If you think God is like complete nonsense, but protecting the Clintons or Democrats or Zoran Mamdani is morally superior to everything else and that Trump is evil, you might have greater issues than simply tribalism and putting blinders on and allowing rampant, absurd, outlandish corruption within your own political party, and then disowning friends and family because they voted Trump after you convinced yourself that your political side is so pristine, when it's the outlandish is not, I don't even know what the word is. the most hilariously overt criminality. It's unbelievable. Let's continue.
Hillary Clinton, as investigators have discovered, a subpoena that was issued last fall to the a subpoena to the Clinton Foundation. Meanwhile, there's a federal judge that's ordered the State Department to make 4 additional releases of Hillary Clinton's emails between Saturday and the end of February. Catherine Herridge, Fox News chief intelligence correspondent, joins me now with the latest. The hits just don't stop coming, but this was a deluge today, Catherine.
Well, there have been a lot of developments in the last 48 hours. In addition, Charles, a U.S. government official confirms to Fox News that more than a dozen email accounts handled the top secret classified information found on Mrs. Clinton's unsecured server, and there is no evidence that they were authorized to receive it. The official said that the email accounts include not only Mrs. Clinton, but also her closest aides, Cheryl Mills, Huma Abedin.
You better believe that 90% of Americans don't care about this. Well, I should say, no, sorry. 95% of Democrats don't care about this. And I'd say probably 60% of Americans don't really care. About 40% care. About 30% of Americans really are interested in this. And this is the cybersecurity debacle of our generation, of the world, in the history of technology. This is the greatest cybersecurity debacle of all time. And again, people in the know or in the U.S. government said, you know what? Hillary Clinton probably said, look, they have the emails. The NSA has the emails, so there's not that much criminality there. It's just about donors. So, but see, that's still breaking the law. Still breaking the law. It's like Aldrich Ames saying, that's not national security. Even when Aldrich Ames sold top secret intel to the Russians, to the Soviets, he said that wasn't a national security issue because they almost certainly they had all the information through other means anyway. But that wasn't for him to decide. Just like it's not for anyone involved in the Clinton email, whether it's Comey or Clinton or anyone, to say, well, that wasn't really an issue because the NSA or other government entities already have all those emails. Really nothing bad with it. They're just donors. But that's still criminal. You can't just simply have servers. It's so outlandish. By the way, Comey wrote the Comey letter stating that Huma Abedin, in the middle here, forwarded classified data to Anthony Weiner, whose laptop he probably had to use a hazmat suit to even touch. So that's classified data forwarded, according to James Comey, in testimony to Dianne Feinstein, from Huma to Anthony Weiner outside the U.S. government on a laptop, by the way, that the FBI eventually, almost certainly, possibly, potentially took control of. And then he couldn't find intent. Comey couldn't find. The whole thing is so absurd. But anyway, let's continue.
Jake Sullivan, Philippe Reines, as well as State Department Under Secretary for Management Patrick Kennedy. Fox News is pressing the State Department on whether a damage assessment is being done.
As to your broader question about concerns of spillage or leakage, obviously those are concerns we take seriously and going forward.
How could there be spillage or leakage with top secret intel on classified servers? I mean, how could anyone have hacked Clinton's servers that were in a basement that illegally obtained top secret and special access program intelligence? Gosh, that's totally outlandish. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel. I'll be back. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel for the latest segment. That's below in the description. Paul Bartlett, as always, in Australia. Thank you to my Australia crew, for the people in Australia watching. God bless you. Love you. Thanks, everybody, and around the world watching. I'll be back tonight, probably around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern. Be here for another blast to the past, a trip down memory lane. It's happening. It's happening. It only took 10 years. It only took 10 years. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it only took 10 years. Anyway, hit subscribe. Indictments all throughout the next 8-9 months. Hit subscribe. See you later.